This is the Rebound Rundown. I'm your host, Paul Fritchner. Your home for college basketball in the Cincinnati area and across the country every Monday through Friday during the season. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Great to be joined by Rick Broering, the publisher of MusketeerReport.com and Northern Kentucky's radio analyst here to preview the Crosstown Shootout coming up on Friday night, 7:30, TNT. Brian Anderson will be on the call for that game. Robbie Hummel, Lauren Jabara, the A-plus broadcast crew at the Cintas Center. Be a rocking environment, as always. 93rd Crosstown Shootout. Rick, your initial thoughts before we get into some more specifics about this game. Just going into it, what are your initial impressions of this year's shootout?
Well, I think it's a game that's changed dramatically over the course of the last few weeks since the season started. It went from being a game that I thought, maybe the Inquirer is right. Maybe this is going to be the year that the shootout loses its luster. It's a bunch of guys who haven't played in the game for the most part. UC is going to be a heavy favorite. I think they're going to win by a lot. And then 2 weeks later, we all feel completely different. I mean, many people probably didn't share that sentiment necessarily, but Paul, we're to the point where I could almost see anything happening in this game. The way these two teams have played, the way the storylines are unfolding, the pressure that is on Wes Miller going into this game. I feel like between the two teams, UC has the better talent still, has the better team, and should win the game, but they're also in a much different spot mentally. I think from a mental standpoint, Xavier feels much more confident. They're free-flowing. They're behind each other. UC's body language has not been great. I feel like the walls are starting to cave in on Wes Miller a little bit, and his players are starting to sense that, and they're feeling that pressure from him. So that's kind of all the storylines that I'm really reading into as the game approaches.
Do you think UC, is there a fear here that UC plays tight because they're going on the road? They haven't won the shootout at Cintas since 2001. These players, they might know the fact, but they haven't been around the rivalry for a while. Day Thomas has played in it, but that's it. Do you think that there's a worry on the Cincinnati side of just going into this game playing tight?
They're kind of in that spot already, right? Like the last few games, they lose to Eastern Michigan, played terribly offensively, and then against Tarleton State, they won the game obviously, but weren't a whole lot better on the offensive end. Definitely had some rough patches there. So I think they might already be in a spot where things are a little bit tight. Maybe the rivalry will help them from that aspect. They're playing more off of emotion and have a little more natural fire and passion to start this game. Maybe that will help them. But I also think, Paul, the where that tightness that you mentioned could really come into play is if things start to go south on them. If they go through like a 5-minute drought in the second half and Xavier hits a few threes and all of a sudden they're on a run and Cintas gets loud, could they start getting that, oh no, here we go again feeling? And I think that's a possibility for them with the way things have been going for them offensively.
Yeah, the differences in this game are pretty astounding, from how well Xavier takes care of the ball to how well UC defensively can turn teams over to how well they defend around the rim to how poorly Xavier scores around the rim. Xavier can shoot the three pretty well. Xavier's going to have to match up with a team that's one of the best defensive teams in the country. There are a lot of intriguing storylines to this game, and your original point that we've talked so much about here this week is we didn't expect this 3 weeks ago. You and I were talking in the preseason. Cincinnati was a comfortable favorite in this game. It was going to be disappointing for Cincinnati fans if Cincinnati didn't win this game. Now, all of a sudden, we're less than 48 hours out, and it's a complete toss-up. Nobody knows at all what's going to happen on Friday night. What has Xavier shown you? What has this coaching staff shown you in the last 2 weeks that has impressed you to flip it to a point to where it's now a 50-50 game?
Well, the coaching staff, I think the way they've impressed me is they've made legitimate adjustments. And you know how much I hate using that term when we're talking about basketball, but in this case, I think it's real. We can mention the things they've done, from going to the small ball lineup and putting Jovan Milicevic at the 5, which in my opinion is by far the biggest change. Just committing to that style of play, saying, okay, we're clearly going to have to give up something on the defensive end and from a rebounding and size perspective, and not go with the style of play we originally thought we would, to playing this small ball, spread you out, quote unquote, death lineup approach. And that has really made a huge difference for them. But there have been other things too, changing their ball screen coverages on the defensive end, throwing some of the zone out there when they were in Charleston. I think it's something that could come into play in this matchup, certainly with UC style on the offensive end. So those are the things that have impressed me from the coaching staff standpoint, their ability to adapt and do the things they had to do to fit their personnel and give them chances to win games. And from the player standpoint, the way they've turned it around is, again, just committing to that style of play where they've got 5 guys out. They've got a front court that can really shoot the 3-point shot and space you out on the offensive end. And that's where I think they're giving teams the most trouble. And it's where I'm most interested to see how UC will guard them. Because as much as we talk about Wes Miller and the pressure on him and some of his struggles maybe as a coach, I do think one thing he's very good at is coming up with a defensive game plan, figuring out how to shut down star players of opposing teams and those types of things. So I do think he will have a game plan for how to manage his bigger shot blocking front court against Xavier's face up, spread you out front court on the offensive end. But I'm curious to see what that looks like.
Yeah. So Xavier wins this game if they do what?
I think it's kind of what we just talked about. Can you find success with the front court spreading UC out? Mustafa Sham, the 7'2" center, shot blocking presence definitely makes their defense better. And then Baba Miller at 6'11" at the power forward spot. He's more mobile. He can do a little bit of everything. But again, that's part of what makes their defense good, is having those big guys with that length and that shot blocking presence out there, having them around the basket. Xavier, with their offense, wants to put Jovan Milicevic on the perimeter, shooting 3-point shots, bringing the big men away from the basket. So if Xavier can get Jovan going and he hits 4 or 5 threes, and now UC has to change what they're doing, they have to either put it out a smaller lineup, or Mustafa has to come away from the basket more and sell out to stop that. I think it's going to open up other wrinkles for Xavier on the offensive end, and that really gives the Musketeers a chance in that case.
I do want to make sure I say, if you're watching this on YouTube, you go down and you subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to this in audio form, subscribe wherever you're listening, Apple, Spotify, all that good stuff. All these podcasts available in audio form if you're watching this on YouTube as well. But Rick, continuing on this conversation about Xavier, from their perspective, shooting the 3 very well right now. The 3 has bailed out both of these teams in games so far this year. Both teams have games of 16 threes. We just saw UC do that against Tarleton State on Monday. Xavier has multiple games making 16 threes this year, which is a crazy number. Going into Friday, could it potentially just boil down to who makes the most threes, or is that too simple?
No, I mean, I think that's a huge factor in this game, considering both teams have been so reliant upon it. So certainly if one side has a clear advantage there from 3-point range, then yeah, that's going to make all the difference in the world. And that's going to be what we point to after the game. The thing I'm more so expecting is that they'll cancel each other out a little bit. I kind of expect both of them to hit around double-digit 3-pointers. So if Xavier has 11 and UC has 9, I don't think that's a clear enough advantage to be the difference in the game now. I think we're talking about other things at that point. So my expectation is they cancel each other out. But yeah, I mean, they're so reliant upon it that if there is a discrepancy there, that's going to be the game.
How much is a home court advantage this year in particular in a game like this? How much is that going to play into it?
I mean, I think there's no question it helps. Look, it's huge in this game. We've just seen from a results perspective, you want to be playing this game at home. Obviously, you have the whole thing with UC not having won at Xavier that matters, but that also, the one thing that the transfer portal changes is a narrative like that doesn't have as much time to build on that current crop of players, right? Like, I don't think that's really a mental hurdle that this current group of UC players has to overcome, because they haven't known about that. They haven't thought about it. They haven't played in the Cintas Center before. I don't think they're going to feel that pressure nearly as much as they're feeling the internal pressure at UC of their fan base wanting their coach fired and everything that's going on over there. In some ways, you do almost wonder, is it better for UC to not be playing at home? Because I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think you want to be at home for the shootout. There's no question. But right now, with the amount of pressure that's been building in that building, I don't think they're necessarily upset about having to not play in front of their fans.
No, that's a great point. It's a point that got brought up on another show I did tonight previewing the game and wondering, is it better to just get out of that environment? And yeah, you're going to be playing in front of a hostile crowd. Whoa, bad voice crack there. Playing in front of that was holy cow. Playing in front of a hostile crowd, and you're going to be doing that if you're Cincinnati, and maybe it's not the worst thing in the world to butt up against some adversity from a just from the noise, at least it's noise, because there hasn't been a ton of noise at Fifth Third Arena in the last few games.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it. Like the worst case scenario for them would be they start out, it's like it's 4-4, and then they go through a 4-minute drought offensively. Xavier goes on a little bit of a run, and the Boo Birds come out at Fifth Third. If that were the case, that would be like catastrophic in this game, I think. I don't know that would happen, but with the scenario they're in right now from a fan base and coaching staff perspective, I think they're okay with not playing it at home right now.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple more things on this game before we talk about NKU. What would you say is the biggest strength for Xavier here that you think they could attack from UC's perspective, and then what makes you the most concerned with Xavier having to handle from UC?
Yeah, I think I don't mean to beat a dead horse here, but I really do think so much of that focus on the front court, being able to stretch UC's big men, space them out on the perimeter. If Xavier can gain an advantage there, then it takes away a lot of what makes UC a top 5 defense in the country right now, according to Ken Palm's efficiency numbers. So to me, that's the matchup to watch. If Xavier can stretch them out and get some quick hitters early with their big guys playing, whether it's driving by them and getting and ones or knocking down the three, that's a big factor in this game from a strength perspective from Xavier, in my opinion, their ability to stretch UC's big men out. The weakness part of it, you could go in a few directions, Paul. I don't know that this is the one that's going to play the biggest role, because UC has struggled to take advantage of this, but Xavier's 2-point defense has not been good. And, their willingness, but their inability to stop people at the rim and give up easy 2-point shots, give up a high percentage from inside the paint. That if UC takes advantage of that and they get a Mustafa Sham going, or Baba Miller just goes nuts and they can't do anything about him, or maybe a guy like Sean Abayev decides, hey, I'm this ultra talented 5-star scorer. I settle for too many jump shots, but I was able to go right by these guys on a couple of the first possessions and get into the lane and score. I'm going to keep doing that tonight, and I'm going to end up with 25 points. Now you're really fighting for your lives if you're Xavier, and that's going to be a much harder game to win if you get one of those other guys going, in addition to just like Day Thomas knocking down some threes.
I gave my prediction on your show. Do you want to trade it here? You want to give a prediction for this game?
Yeah, so I'll say the same thing that I said on my show, which is that it's a little bit of a cop-out answer. I think UC has the better team. I think UC probably has the best player on the floor in Baba Miller. I think there are multiple ways in which UC can beat Xavier, and I think they should beat Xavier this year. So I will not be surprised at all if UC even wins this game by double digits. However, I'm to the point now, I cannot trust Wes Miller. I cannot predict Wes Miller to win this game under these circumstances with the way his offense has played the last few games. Here's what I think happens. I think they take advantage early of Xavier's lack of rim protection. They get some early baskets at the rim. They gain a first half lead. And sometime, whether it be late in the first half or early second half, Xavier switches to a zone defense, and then it's game on. And Xavier has a comeback win. I'm going to say 68-64 Xavier.
Wow. Okay. All right, Rick. That's it. Anything else about the shootout that we haven't talked about? Any questions? Anything, or any comments? Anything that you're looking for to stick out? Maybe. How about this? How about a pick to click that's flying under the radar?
Fill me in on what's pick to click. Is points, rebounds, and assists or something? Or what's
that?
No.
I just meant like a player, like your pick to click, like a player that you feel like maybe hasn't been getting talked about enough from Xavier, that you think, oh yeah, he might show up and be the shootout guy this year.
I mean, I just find it hard to go away from Jovan. I know he's been a big scorer for Xavier, but he's the guy that I'm most interested in, because it's like if he knocks down some early threes, I expect Trey Carroll's going to play pretty well. I think he'll show up and give Xavier his best. But to me, if Xavier wins this game, I think Jovan Milicevic is the hero and the name that we're talking about the next day.
Rick, I appreciate you as always. Publisher of musketeerreport.com. That's where you can read Rick's Xavier work. Follow him on social media everywhere. And also you can listen to him on the radio with Jim Kelch calling the NKU games. Thanks, Rick.
Thanks, Paul.